What's up everybody, welcome back. So in the Mech multiplayer series, the last episode we set up the spawning of our AI, and for this video I want to make sure that we add a countdown at the beginning of each round, and we will also display the current round number on the screen and in the top left of the screen. So a little bit of UI stuff in this episode to complete the spawning setup. So that's what we're gonna do today. If you like the series, please consider leaving a like, and if you want to get the project files, you can dive into my Discord server. All of my projects are free to download in there. So let's start today's episode. First of all, I'm gonna use the Orbitron font from the Lyra starter game. So if you don't have it, you can go to the Fab Marketplace, download the Lyra starter game pack, and then grab the font from there. I do have to warn you, it's a 5 GB download, so it might be a little bit big just to get yourself a new font. So that's up to you. You can use any font that you want, obviously, to make this work. So first of all, we need to go inside of our Player HUD widget to add a little bit of text in here. So let's open our Player HUD widget. We're going to grab a new text and drag it on here. The first thing we're going to add is the round number big. So I'm going to call this text round number and then big. We want to make sure this is a variable. So let's enable that on the top right over here. First of all, let's set up the anchor. So I'm going to anchor it to the top center of the screen. And then the position X is going to be 0. Y is going to be 180. And then the alignment for the X value is going to be 0.5. We're going to enable size to content over here, and then for the text we could say something like round 1, so we know what it looks like. Then I want to make this green, so I'm going to grab a sort of a green color from here, but maybe make it a little bit less bright, and then save it. Let's go back to the text over here and change the color to green. We're going to make sure that we change the font. So as I mentioned, I'm going to use the Orbitron font and then Orbitron bold. And I'm going to increase the size as well. So I'm going to make it 64 units big and give it a little bit of shadow. So the shadow offset over here, I'm going to say 4 by 4. And then I want a little bit of yellowish. So something like this. And I'm going to save this color as well. So that, well, let's go to justification and set it to align center to make sure it's nicely aligned as well. And then that should be everything we need to do in here. Then we're going to duplicate this round number big, and we're going to call this our round number small. And this is the one that's going to enter in the top left over here. So let's make sure, excuse me, that we align it properly. So I'm going to set the anchor to the top left. And then I'm going to make the position X 130 and the position Y is going to be 16. And then we can say alignment over here is going to be 0, so it's actually spaced out. Size to content, that's fine. Text round 1, that's fine. We want to make it a little bit smaller, so I'm going to make it 32 units big, and then also make the shadow a bit smaller, so 2 by 2 for the shadow offset. That should be good, and then I'm going to grab the round number big again and duplicate it once more. And this is going to be the text for the countdown. So let's say text countdown. And let's change the text to something like 3. So that's where the countdown will start. And we want to set the alignment again. So the alignment is going to be the top center. And then we're going to say X 0, Y 275. And size to content enabled. I'm going to make it a little bit smaller than the text above here. So let's say 58, something like that. And that should be fine. And that's most of the setup done in here. We do want to make sure that we grab our round number big and the countdown, both of them. And we're going to scroll down to the behavior for the visibility and set it to hidden by default. So these two are hidden by default and the small round number is still visible. And then we are done with the designer part. So now we can go into our graph and we need to set up a few things in here as well. The first thing we're going to add is a custom event that we can call to remove the countdown text from the screen. So let's create a new custom event inside of the event graph and call this countdown remove. And we're doing this inside of the event graph because we want a 3-second delay in here. So we're going to grab the delay, set it to 3 seconds, and then we're going to grab our text round number big. And we're also going to grab the text countdown, and we're going to set both of those for the visibility hidden. So set visibility, plug it in, make sure it's set to hidden, and make sure we plug in both of these. And then we want to grab our text countdown and we're going to reset it for the next time that we want to start the countdown. So we're going to set the text for this, use the set text node, and we're going to simply set it back to 3, so where it was at the beginning. So that's our event countdown remove. Then we want to create 2 functions, one to update the round number and one to update the countdown. So let's create a new function and call this update round number. And we are going to give this one input, I think. Yes. So this is going to be an input that is the current round, and that's an integer. And then we can grab our text round number big and our text countdown again. And these are hidden by default, so we want to make sure these are visible. So set visibility first. And make sure they're visible and plug in both of them. And then we can grab our text round number big again, and we can also grab the text round number small. And for this we're going to say set text with the set text node, plug both of them in here, and we're going to grab a format text. And for the format we're going to say round and then open curly bracket, a close curly bracket, so the a will become a wildcard, and we can simply plug in our round number over here. So this will update the round text, and then we want to update the countdown as well. So we're going to create a second function and call this update countdown. And for this one, we want to give it 2 inputs. So the first one is going to be the text. So let's simply add a text input. Nope, that was a fat fingered R. And that's a text variable, and then we're also going to add a second input, and that's going to be end countdown, and this is a boolean, so we can enable this boolean, and then we can call our remove countdown event. The first thing we're going to do is grab our text for the countdown, and we're simply going to set the text to the text as an input over here. So the input of the event is going to be the text, and then we're going to grab a branch to check if we want to remove the countdown. So plug in our condition over here, and if this is true, then we're going to call our countdown remove event. So after 3 seconds, then the countdown text will be removed from the screen. So let's compile and save that, and that's good to go. So we're done inside of our HUD widget, and we want to open our Mac player controller. So we're going to use the player controller as a connection between the host and the owning clients, essentially. So the host in the game mode is going to execute all of these events, and then using our player controller references on the host, we can use client replicated events to make sure that we can actually reach our HUD, which only exists on the local client. So we're going to go into the event graph of this player controller, and we're going to create 2 new events. And the first one is going to be owner HUD update round. So let's create a custom event. Owner HUD update round. And for this we want the input as the round number, but we can make it our lives a little bit easier by simply grabbing our HUD reference, and we're going to call our update round number function in here, and then we can simply pass on the variable like that. So for this event we want to make sure that we set the replication to run on the owning client, and we're going to make sure that this one is reliable as well, to make sure that they actually execute, because we're calling these from a for each loop, so they're bunched up, and we want to make sure that the text actually is correct on the screen, and it will also get removed at the end. So I'm going to make this event reliable, then create a second custom event and call this one owner HUD update countdown. Update countdown. And we're going to do a similar thing. So we're going to grab our player HUD, but this time we're going to call our update countdown function that we just created, plug it in and also pass on the two variables in here. Then for this event again, we're going to set it to run on the owning client because it's going to be called from the game mode by the server. And we're going to set reliable for this event as well. And for this one, it's actually more important than for this event. So this will make sure that the countdown will also be removed at the end. So we don't want the text to be stuck on the screen. So we're going to make sure that this event is reliable. So we can compile and save that, and this is our connection between the host and the owning clients. So now we can go to our game mode. So let's open our BattleMechs game mode, and in here we can set everything up. So the first thing we need is an array of all of the player controllers that are in the game, and we don't really have that yet. So we're going to make sure that happens first by going to our event post login, and we're going to grab the new player controller that entered the game over here, and we're going to cast it to our Mac player controller. And we don't need to worry about doing the cast in here. This player controller will always be loaded if we load the game, so it's already loaded in the memory and this cast won't do any bad. So with the player controller casted to the correct class, we want to add it to an array. So we're going to drag off here, promote to variable, and let's call this all player controllers. And then we can get rid of the setter and simply right click the variable here to turn it into an array. Then we need to grab a getter and we're going to add our newly entered player controller to the array. So for all of the players that enter the game, we will have a reference to that player controller inside of this array. Then we want to create the functions that we are going to call to start the game. So first of all, to start a new round and then to also start the countdown. So let's go to an empty spot, create a custom event, and let's call this start new round. And we need a bunch of variables to make our lives a little easier, so let's create those as well. The first one is going to be the countdown timer, and that's a single variable and then an integer. Then we're going to add a second integer, and that's our round number, so simply the current round we're playing on. Then we need a boolean that tells us if we are in between rounds, so that's intermission, and we're going to turn it into a boolean. And the last variable we need is the round duration, and that's going to be a float. So we can make each round last a little bit longer than the previous one. So turn it into a float. So with the variables in place, we're going to go to the start new round event. And the first thing we want to do is grab our countdown timer, and we're going to reset it back to 3 seconds so we can start counting down again. Then we're going to grab our round number and we're going to increment it. So we can call this event each time we start a new round. After we incremented the round number, we want to make sure that all of the players see it on their screen. So we're going to grab a for each loop for all of our player controllers. So let's grab the player controllers, look for a for each loop and hook it up. And for this, we want to call our owner HUD update round. So owner HUD update round event, plug it in, and then we can simply plug in our round number over here to display the correct number on the player screen. Then we want to start the countdown, and we're going to do that in a second event. So let's create a custom event again, and let's call this one round countdown. So we want to call this event from the completed pin over here. So round countdown. And then for this event, the first thing we're going to do is wait for 1 second. So let's grab a delay, wait 1 second, and then we're going to grab our countdown timer and we're going to decrement the integer. So decrement, plug it in, And then we need to update the text for the players. So again, we're going to grab a for each loop for all of the player controllers. Plug it in over here. And this time we're going to call our owner HUD update countdown event. Plug it into the loop body. And then for the text, we want to do a little bit different. So we're going to grab our current round number. The first thing we're going to do is change it into a text. So we're going to say to text from an integer. Then we want to select a different text if the countdown actually hits 0, because I'm not going to say 3, 2, 1, 0, but I'm going to say 3, 2, 1, go. So at the end, if the text over here is 0, then we actually want to say go. So I'm going to use a select node to make that happen. So use select. For the actual condition of the select node, we're going to check if our countdown timer is 0. Oh, I messed up. So we don't want to hook up the round number here. Sorry, we want to hook up the countdown timer, because that's the value that we want to display on the screen over here. So if our countdown timer is 0, so do equal 0 and plug that one into the index. So if this is false, it will simply pick the 3, 2, 1. And if it's true, then we're going to say go with an exclamation mark and plug that one into the event over here. Excuse me. So this is the text, and then for the end countdown we can use the same condition. So if our countdown reaches 0, we're going to enable the boolean, and that will make sure that 3 seconds later the text for the countdown will be removed from the screen. So that's the setup over here. Then if this for each loop is completed, we want to know if we need to start the game. So we're going to grab a branch over here, plug it into the for each loop. And we want to start the game if the countdown timer is 0. So we're going to grab our countdown timer again, but this time we're going to do is greater than. And use that as a condition. So if the countdown timer is greater than 0, then we're going to call this event again. So we're going to say round countdown. So this will simply make sure we start the event again, wait another second, decrement the timer, show it on the client screens or all of the player screens for the host as well, obviously. And then check again if we're already at 0. If we are at 0, then we want to start the game. And we do want to know if this is the first round or we're actually already further progressed in the game. So from the false bin, we're going to hook up a second branch and we're going to check the round number and make sure that this is equal to 1. And that's our condition. So if it's equal to 1, then we want to call our start game event first. So this will set all of the default variables that we need for spawning. And after that, we're going to say increase difficulty timer. And if this is not the first round, then all we want to do is grab our intermission boolean and set it to false. And then also call our increase difficulty timer event. So this is good to go for our countdown at the beginning of each round, and also for starting the first round and every round after that, to be honest. Now we want to make sure that our intermission boolean actually does something. And if our intermission bool is true, then we simply want to pause the spawning for a little bit so we can display the text for the next round on screen. So if we go to our spawn loop event, then at the beginning we already check if the current AI count is greater than the maximum AI alive. And if it is, we're pausing the spawning. So what we can do is simply disconnect this condition, and we're going to look for an OR boolean and then hook up our intermission boolean. So if the intermission bool is true, then we're also simply going to pause the spawning for a little bit until we set this back to false. So that's good to go already. Then we need to go inside of our increase difficulty timer and our start game event to make the rest of it work. So I got these listed a little bit above here. So the first thing we're going to do inside of the start game event is set the round duration. So grab a setter for the round duration, and I'm going to start by 30 seconds. So that's for the first round, and then every round after that I'm simply going to increase it by 10 seconds. So now we can go to our increase difficulty timer event. We're going to hook up the round duration to the delay over here at the beginning. After the duration has ended, so when the round is pretty much over, then we're going to grab our intermission boolean and set it to true. So this will make sure we are not spawning any new enemies anymore from this point on. Then we're going to grab our round duration and I'm going to increase it by 10. So I'm simply going to grab the current value and add 10 to it. So the next round will last 10 seconds longer. Plug it in over here. And then at the end, so I'm going to move this print to the end as well. So after we set the new value for the maximum AI, I'm going to disconnect it and we're going to get rid of this print for now as well. So we want to make sure that we wait till the players killed all of the current enemies. And when all of the enemies are dead, then we're going to start the new round. So what we're going to do over here is grab a branch, plug it in, and we're going to check if our current AI count is greater than 0. So we have our current AI count over here, and we can simply do is greater than and plug it in as our condition. So if this is true, then we're going to wait. So I'm going to grab a delay and hook it up like so. So we keep looping as long as there are any AIs alive. And if all of them are dead, then we're going to continue. So then we're going to hook up the false pin to the print to make sure that we know what is happening for both of them. So it's going to say difficulty increased and then display the new values. And then we're going to wait 1 second over here. So we're not going to call our increased difficulty timer event again. So we're going to get rid of that. Then I'm going to wait 1 second. And then simply call our start new round event. Like so. So the players kill all enemies. It will wait 1 second. Then it will display the new countdown for the next round and go to this function. So this will, as I mentioned, display the correct round number, start counting down, and then set our intermission boolean back to false at the end of the countdown, and then call our increased difficulty timer event again. This will wait for the duration of the round, set the intermission to true, so that will make sure we pause the spawning, and then increase all of the variables to make the game a little bit more difficult. Wait for all of the AI to die, and then do everything again. So that's pretty much how this is going to work. So because this is not really a difficulty timer anymore, I'm going to rename this event simply to round timer. So that's maybe a little bit more clear. And then I think we have most of it set up and good to go. So let me double check quickly. No, we don't obviously. Because at the beginning over here in our event begin play, we still call our start game and round timer events. So we're going to get rid of that. And after this 3 second delay, we're going to call our start game event. So this delay, we will get to this later in the series. We're going to get rid of this static delay, but for now we need it to make sure that all of the player controllers have spawned and that they have a valid reference to our HUD widgets. So when we actually set up multiplayer with the lobby and we know how many players are going to enter the game, then we're going to get rid of this static delay and simply wait for all of the players to connect to the game and then continue. But for now, this should work fine, I hope. If I didn't forget anything, but I don't think I did. So we're going to grab a 2-player game, make sure we are on listen server, and then hit play. And then we should get our countdown in the screen. And we don't. So I kind of forgot something, but we are not getting any errors. So let's make sure start game. Oh, sorry. So that's my bad. So at the end of the event begin play, we don't want to call start game. We want to call the start new round function that we just created. And this event will eventually call our start game event. So that should work. At the end of begin play, call start new round and not start game. So now if we hit play, we should get the countdown over here. 3, 2, 1, go. and then we should have the text removed after 3 seconds. And you can see it's working for both the host and the client, so that's good. Now let's see if we can survive for one round and make sure that the text actually updates at the end of the round. So let's make sure that nobody dies in here. So there we go, we killed the last enemy, and now we have a new countdown. We have round 2 on screen, and the small text over here also updates. So that seems to be working, and it's working for both the host and the client, so that's good as well. And if we close the game, we don't have any errors. So that's good to go. Nice, we have the countdown set up. Now in the next episode we are going to tackle the issue that if the AI kills a player, it doesn't look for a new target. So if we have 2 or 3 players in the game and one of them died, we want to make sure that the AI that was attacking the player that just died are going to pick a new target and the game doesn't get stuck. So that's what we're going to do in the next episode, and then after that we're going to add some health pickups, and then we are pretty much good to go to set up all of the widgets and stuff like that. So we're getting closer to finishing the base of the project, but we still have a couple episodes to go. Hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, please consider leaving a like, and I'll be back soon for more. Talk to you later. Bye bye.